And in this effort to bend over backwards to treat Trump in a way he was not treated, he winds up enabling him, covering him, normalizing him. It was really pathetic. And I use that word advisedly because that is the single adjective that I heard over and over again from Democrats, from Democratic activists. Pathetic. Why even bother? Hi, this is Jen Rubin, and this is Jen Rubin's Green Room. Happy 2025. Well, we hope it's a little bit better than 2024. Let's review a bit of what has happened already. Unlike the Republicans, Democrats managed the peaceful transfer of power without a hitch, with dignity, with the proper seriousness the occasion deserves. And I have to hand it to Vice President Kamala Harris. The dignity she displayed, the self-restraint, was really a model. And we sometimes we should deplore the bad behavior of politicians. But when they behave admirably and when they set an example for our children, we really should underscore that they've done the right thing. And she certainly did. Now, I have a certain bone to pick with the president, and that concerns, frankly, the op-ed he wrote for the Washington Post, which I currently work for. He implored us to remember January 6th. So far, so good. He reminded us that this was an abomination, a violation of the tradition of a peaceful transfer of power. He talked about the mob. He talked about democracy prevailing. You know, the only thing he missed was President Trump. Amazingly, the entire thing was written in passive voice, as if the mob had assembled itself, as if the mob had called itself, as if the mob had been sent up to the Capitol itself, as if the mob had initiated a call to hang Mike Pence. All of this omits the central role of Trump and the central role of the Republican Party and the MAGA movement. Why bother doing this if you're going to exempt the people responsible for this heinous behavior? Well, I have a couple theories. One is that Biden doesn't understand the difference between respecting the institution of the presidency, that is the incoming presidency, and the obligation to respect his victory, and the obligation that sometimes comes with that to also be completely candid, honest, and not cover up for your successes' errors, whether they were in the past, the future, or the present. And in this effort to bend over backwards to treat Trump in a way he was not treated, he winds up enabling him, covering him, normalizing him. It was really pathetic. And I use that word advisedly because that is the single adjective that I heard over and over again from Democrats, from Democratic activists. Pathetic. Why even bother? And I think we get down to the central dilemma of the Biden presidency. On one hand, he was absolutely the right person to manage the country coming out of COVID, coming out of a recession. He was able to push through a really impressive array of legislation. But he missed, I think, and part of this is age, part of this is generation, part of this is his breeding in the Senate. He missed the central challenge, which is to bring a knife to the knife fight, which is to use every weapon available in the arsenal of the bully pulpit to inform and remind people of who Trump is and what the message is that Trump is trying to convey, which is fundamentally anti-democratic, anti-American. And so he winds up defending some peculiar sort of 19th century sense of cordiality, of comedy. And in the midst of an effort that we are all struggling with to remind people of the truth of January 6th, he actually makes things worse. And that makes me sad. It disappoints me. And once again, it leaves me wondering, had he stepped away, as he suggested he would during the campaign after a single term, given Kamala Harris a full primary and others a full primary, whether we would not now be facing the return of Donald Trump, which is a national tragedy. And I guess that's where we come back to. And over a week, a little over a week and a half, we're going to see Donald Trump take the oath of office, which means nothing to him, and resume the presidency. We already know what he's got up his sleeve. He wants massive tax cuts for the rich. He is not going to be able to in any way pay for this. So he's going to try to either fudge the numbers in a way that is laughable and gives the markets the creeps, because we can no longer trust the accounting and the data coming out of the government, or he's going to start cutting things that he promised he wouldn't cut, like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I don't know which he's going to do, but it's going to be bad. And it's going to reinforce the message that Democrats have to make, which is Republicans are the party of the billionaires and the big corporations who are now bending over backwards trying to please him. Democrats are the party of the little people, the ordinary people, the average American. And Democrats have to make that message clear every single day, whether it's on healthcare, education, the budget, tariffs, which, if Trump passes them, are going to disproportionately impact middle class and working class people on everything they buy, or whether it's on mass deportations, which, of course, are not only going to affect the people who are deported, but the businesses, the farms, the communities in which these people have lived peacefully and, frankly, lawfully, aside from their entry into the United States, for, in some cases, decades. So Democrats are going to have their work cut out for them. I will say this. In the House, Democrats did something smart last time around. They made a generational change. We have Hakeem Jeffries, we have Pete Aguilar, we have Catherine Clark, people who are of a new generation who are very good at messaging, particularly the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries. And they have avoided this kind of paralysis that happens when you have the same people in power decade after decade. I regret to say that the Senate has not made the same choice. And in fact, they, in one case, as I wrote today in the Washington Post, this is Tuesday, a disastrous choice in putting Senator Dick Durbin back in the chairman's seat, which is now going to be the ranking minority seat of the Judiciary Committee. He's entirely ill-equipped. He was Mr. Conciliatory. He was Mr. Comedy, comedy with a C-O-M-I-T-Y, although it was sadly comedic at times. He did not press every single nominee through. He did not demand that the subpoena be issued to, frankly, the Chief Justice, who refused to show up to his hearing. He did not join in the demand for a criminal referral of the Justice Thomas. He was not the right person for the right time. And he really will not be the right person at the right time to lead hearings on Kash Patel, on Pam Bondi, on the rest of the crew that Trump is going to nominate, let alone the judges that are going to come before them. So I remain disappointed that Democrats haven't seen fit not only to change their committee, their conference leadership, that is the minority leader, the whip, and the rest, but also some of these committee ranking members who will now have the responsibility for running interference, for trying to stop this Trump train, which is going to go off the tracks, we know. So what do we do in the upcoming year? Well, I think there are several things we can all do. One is we do not get the luxury of exhaustion. I'm sorry. Yes, we were tired at the end of the year. You had your holiday. Get back in the game. Democracy is not voluntary. If we want a democracy, if we want to maintain our basic fundamental freedoms, we want to maintain an inclusive society, we have to work for it. Our leaders are not up to the task. We saw that with Biden. We've seen that with Dick Durbin. We've seen this time and time again. It's us. We are the people who are going to have to combat the MAGA scourge over and over again. We're the ones who are going to have to sound the alarm, are going to have to push lawmakers to object and to block initiatives. We're the ones who are going to have to encourage state and local officials to fill the gap. It's not going to be anybody else. And frankly, there are many, many groups in this country, most especially African Americans, who have never had the luxury of giving up on America. And despite the vile treatment that they have received over decades, over centuries, they have not given up on this country. And none of us have the luxury of doing so. So I think we need to rouse ourselves. We need to sturdy ourselves for the task ahead. And we need to re-engage. Now, my second piece of advice would be you have to be selective in the way you engage. I do not think scrolling through X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it is productive. I don't think it's worthwhile to watch hours or even an hour of cable TV news. It's not productive, it's annoying, and it's not informative. It is not helping you to become an advocate for democracy. I would be much more selective in the media you watch and hear. I would make an effort to pay attention to original sources like C-SPAN. I would go to events that are in your area. And I would look for actual data rather than people talking about the data. One of the problems we had, of course, with the economic message was the press reported on what people thought about the economy, which was highly negative, rather than the economy itself. So we have to do a little work. We have to do some homework. And we have to seek out those good news sources that have responsible commentary, that actually do the hard work of reporting facts. And you're going to have to be much more selective, I think, than in the past. And there are good publications out there. I would point to the Philadelphia Inquirer. I would point to the Atlantic. I would point to the folks at the Bulwark. There are many good sources of information and expertise. There are also think tanks like Brookings, for example, which has all sorts of public papers, public discussions, experts. And these are the sources you're going to have to seek out in order to keep yourself informed and bat down the disinformation. In that same vein, I implore you, find a local newspaper to support. It is vital to have good local news. It's vital to have nonprofit news. So send a few bucks each month if you canceled a subscription to some mainstream outlet, and send it to ProPublica or send it to a local paper. And I think you will find that your money is well spent. We have to be able to have the facts in order to have the best possible democracy we can. And lastly, find those groups that really speak up for your values. It might be the ACLU. It might be Protect Democracy. It might be Planned Parenthood. It might be a specific campaign. We have great candidates running in Virginia and New Jersey next year for governor. Sign up with one of them. Donate your time. Find a group that channels your values. And if you do those three things, that is to limit and redirect your news consumption, to support better outlets for news, and to support groups, campaigns that speak to your values, then I think you'll be doing something that actually moves the ball forward. You're not going to be able to change the world. I'm not going to be able to change the world in one day, but every day you should think about one thing you can do to promote democracy, to promote literacy in media, to reach out to neighbors, to make your community a little bit more functional. We're going to have a very long road ahead, but the good news is there really is a community of people, nearly 50% of the electorate. And frankly, if you count people who didn't even bother to vote, more than 50% of the country is with us. And those are the people we're going to have to engage. Those are the people we're going to have to reach out to. And we're going to have to figure out what message and what messengers is effective for re-engaging them. So a lot of work to do in the year ahead. And of course, if you enjoy this program, you think your friends, relations would, please tell them about us. They can listen, they can follow us. We can be found wherever they get their podcasts. Bye-bye.